What is up, everybody? It is Auk here, back with another video, and today we're going to be taking a look at how to kill the princess. So for the past while on my stream, I've been killing princess pretty much constantly, trying to get the dagger. So the dagger basically is the Blade of Eternal Darkness, and what it does is it gives you, in essence, unlimited mana if you're farming with it properly. And so a lot of people are going to be using it for the ZG farm to try to solo farm a little bit quicker when ZG drops. I'm also going to be using it for a Strat 1 pool, things of that nature, and so I really want to get the dagger. A lot of people are curious if you should farm the dagger, and so that's completely up to you, but just a fair warning that it is a major time investment potentially. Some people get it on the very first kill, some people get it on the 4,000th, and so it's all RNG, but it has a 0.19% drop chance. But as I've been farming princess, a lot of people have been asking me, how do I kill princess? Can I make a guide showing exactly how to kill princess? Can I kill princess with this spec, etc., etc.? And so what I wanted to do was I wanted to go through it and make a video showing how to kill princess with 3 different specs based on some generic specs that people might be, and show how to have some slight modifications to the spec to be able to do princess as well, and show the actual 3 kills with those specs, talking through the individual kind of nuances that you might need to know to be able to kill it with those specs. After that, I'm going to be talking through some extra tips and tricks where you can make money along the way, but the main focus of the video is on the princess kills. So let's jump into it. Now here we are over in Maraudon. There are 2 different ways to get to the princess. The first way is just go straight through purple side, and you can grab the ghost mushrooms along the way and things like that. But the faster way is to go through the portal, and so that's what we're going to do now. Now, in my original video for how to farm Mara 1 pool, I have a guide about how to get the scepter so you can go through this portal, and so I'll link that up above if you guys want to use that. But if you go through the scepter, you're already at the waterfall, and so you're halfway to the princess. So I prefer to use this method to go there as quickly as possible. Now you can make some extra money on the way if you are herbalism or mining, because there's going to be herbs and mines along the way. There's going to be 1 herb in one of these 3 spots. Now I already alluded to one in this video just so I could show how to get to the princess, but there's going to be one of the herbs in one of these 3 spots. Another way you can also make money is if you sell runs. So there's a ring that drops out of here that a lot of people want. There's a dagger that shamans want too. And so if they want to get loot, what you have to do is you have to bring them over to here, and you basically just have to leave them in this corner. Now, this Hydra right here needs to be killed. But as long as they're standing right in this corner, they'll be close enough to the princess where they can get loot. This Hydra, however, if they're a low level, will be able to attack them and kill them if they just sit there without it being dead, so you do have to make sure that you kill that Hydra. But now as we get going, you basically hug the left path, and you're running up kind of like my 220 Mara pool kind of area, and you run along this left side. So let's jump into the gear real quick. As far as gear goes, you just want to have some spell power. And so I don't have the best gear by any stretch of the imagination, but I have decent enough gear where I can get the farm done. Now this glowing brightwood staff, I recommend switching out for Rod of the Ogre Mage or something like that to get the spell power. But overall, it's not great gear. Typically for an AoE farm, you want intellect and stamina, because intellect and stamina will allow you to last longer in the fight, and the spell power coefficients are very low. But most of the specs, you're going to be killing this boss with something with a cast time, or at least fire spells, which have a decent spell coefficient. So you actually want spell power, and you want crit for this boss. Most of the specs, the best specs that you're going to be using, are going to be ignite specs. And so you want to be having as many crits as possible so you can do as much damage as possible. So spell power and crit are going to be the main things you want to focus out on. You do not want to give out all of your, intellect and stamina and things like that, because at the end of the day, you are going to be getting hit by boulders, and it is a long fight, and it is a level 50 boss and things like that. But for the majority of the time, you just want to focus on spell power and crit. So I've been doing this on my stream for about a month now. Stream will be linked down below if you guys want to go check it out live on stream and ask me any questions. But it's been a lot of fun, but the dagger is elusive. So the dagger that we're trying to go for is this dagger right here, Blade of Eternal Darkness. And now the Blade of Eternal Darkness has a chance on landing a damaging spell to deal 100 shadow damage and restore 100 mana to you. What that means is that whenever you hit an opponent with an ability that's a direct damaging spell, not an AoE over time spell, but a direct damaging spell, then it has a chance to give you 100 mana back. What's that chance? It's about 10%. So if we have 50 mobs on us, and we're doing an AoE farm, and we hit them with Arcane Explosion, we very likely are going to get back about 500 mana just for that one Arcane Explosion. Arcane Explosion costs 390 mana, which means that by doing an ability that does a ton of damage to mobs, you're actually getting back mana. So that's why it's so sought after for so many farms, especially for ZG crocs, so you can maintain mana. But bear in mind that it does not proc on AoE spells or sorry, over time spells. And so Blizzard, for example, that's damage over time. It's not going to proc over each individual tick. It can proc off the very first tick of Blizzard, but that's it. All right, so once we get to Princess here, Princess is right behind us right here. It's level 51, Elite, 23,000-ish health based on the Modern Target Frame add-on. If you ever need to reset some of the mobs, what you can do is that you can just hop up onto here, and they will reset. This is a reset spot right here. If the Princess run is also going poorly, you can just hop right up onto the spot, reset the Princess, and you'll be good to go. Let's jump into each of the different specs and how we can actually kill the boss. So we're going to go from the worst to best specs, which means we're going to start off with the Frost spec. So at number 3, we have this Frost spec. This spec is designed so that if you have a rating, or if you still want to do the Mara 1 pools, or the SM Cath 1 pools, things like that, if you still want to be able to do your Frost farms, you can do Princess. However, it's going to take you a lot longer to kill Princess. You have a lot higher of a chance of dying to Princess, and it's just not a fun time. So I don't recommend doing it unless you really need it, or you're really, really strapped on gold and can't respec or something like that. But this is the Frost spec, and we can do it with the Frost spec. So let's jump into that. Okay, so here we have the Frost spec, and so what you can see is that we are getting mana back. You want to make sure that you start off at a decent location, and you want to make sure that you're using this pillar to generate some extra distance. Now with the Frost spec, I don't have the best gear, as you saw before, but I recommend having really good gear, or just don't even try it, because you need as much spell damage as you can get, or else you're just going to run out of mana during the fight. One thing to make sure that you can do is to make sure you're as mana conservative as possible, and so I'm going to be showing tips and tricks along the way for that. Open up with a Fireball, because Fireball will still do more damage likely. Then open up into Frostbolt, Fire Blast, and just start kiting. The name of the game with Frost is that you want to make sure you're kiting constantly. Be very, very conservative, because you need to regen as much mana as you can so you can outlast her. Here I spawned the Barov trinket just to try to trigger Dust Field. And so Dust Field is something where she just starts casting a bunch of dust things, but the main thing is that it gives you free time to go into free casting. You're able to get off a lot of damage to her, and that is one benefit of the Frost spec. Because you have Ice Block and probably Cold Snap and another Ice Block, you can actually trigger multiple Dust Fields during the fight, which makes it much, much easier to be able to handle the fight, because you can trigger the Dust Fields and then free cast on her. Outside of that, you need to be kiting the entire time, only casting abilities when you know that you can get away. And so I'm only casting abilities when I know I can get away with Blink, or when she's going to be going for a boulder. Outside of that, you want to be taking a straight line at all times, because she does run faster than you. There you saw me trigger a Dust Field with an Ice Block, so I immediately blink away, go into Frostbolt spamming, but as soon as she starts moving to me, I stop and I just cast Fire Blast and then keep on moving. Stay away from her at all times. She is slightly faster than you. So if you have the movement speed on boots, which you need to have the movement speed on boots, she's probably about 2% faster than you. So if you're taking a straight direct path, she's not going to catch you for a decent amount of time. She will eventually catch you, but she's not going to catch you for a decent amount of time, long enough for you to get back up Frostbolt and things like, Blink and things like that, so you can get away. But if you are not, taking a direct path and you're taking a circle route, she's constantly calculating the best possible path to get to you, and eventually she is going to catch up to you and she's going to kill you. Why is she going to kill you? Well, she has something called Thrash, and so we talked about this a little bit with the Hydras when we were doing the Mara 1 pool, but basically Thrash means that she is constantly powering up her attacks, and so you're going to see each of those times that I go through a block, she hits me a bunch of times when I'm in the block. And the reason is that she's charging up attacks, specifically 5 of them, and so as soon as she gets to me, she's hitting me 5 times in a row. Now, if I don't have block or something like that, that means I'm going to be getting hit for 400 to 500 non-crits and up to 800 to 900 crits 5 times in a row. It's going to hurt. It's not going to be a good day. So you definitely can't let her catch up to you. And you're going to see that it takes some damage with the other specs, but the other specs, it's a little bit better to take damage with. But here you just cut around the outside. At 25%, she's going to start moving slower. And so here you see I'm just trying to be very conservative. I'm using my Fire Blast. You'll also notice that my second mana gem's almost off cooldown. One thing you want to be doing is you want to be very, very mana conservative. One of the best ways to do that is kind of treat it like a raid boss. And so as soon as you can get enough mana out of your first mana gem, pop that mana gem. So even if you're like 75% mana, pop that mana gem, because you want to start the cooldown on the second mana gem immediately, so that at the end of the fight, you can pop that second mana gem. Now, if you have really, really good gear, if you're in like full T2 or something like that, you probably aren't going to need both. But if you're somebody just starting off, especially if you're on like a fresh at all kind of tune, or if you're just in, MC gear even, I guess my MC gear should be good because it has a ton of intellect, but just pre-best or something like that, you want to be as mana conservative as possible. Make sure you're keeping up your mana gems. Ultimately, at 25%, she slows down, and she keeps on slowing down more and more the lower health she gets, so I just try to outrange the boulders here. You can see there that there's a little trick where you can actually outrange a boulder while still being in casting range. It's much, much easier to do with Fire Spec than Frost Spec, but it is something you could potentially do where you're right on the limit of your ability to cast and right within the limit of the boulder. And so that's the Frost Spec. It's going to be the most difficult of the specs to handle. It's going to be the longest fight for sure, but it is viable if you need to keep the spec. So the number 2 spec is going to be the Palm Pyro build. And so this is arcane power. This is just pure obliteration and things like that. And I've heard of some people being able to kill her as quickly as 30 seconds or less with this spec. Now, this spec could be number 1 for you if you have really good gear. If you have middle of the ground gear, kind of like myself, or if you have mediocre gear though, this is not going to be the number 1 spec for you just because you aren't going to have enough throughput in the opener. But if you have a ton of good gear in the opener, you can get her low enough where you're just, kind of kiting around with her already low health, then this could be the number 1 spec for you. But let's jump into it and start off with the fight. And so the very first thing you want to do is you just want to go through Arcane Power and Pyroblast. You're going for as much damage as possible right out of the opener. You want to immediately go into Scorches so you can stack the fire vulnerability so she takes more damage. I try to get off 3 Scorches and then a Fire Blast, jump away, then go into a Palm Pyro right after that. And so you'll see that she's at 75% health, which honestly, I didn't get lucky at all. I don't think I got a single crit that entire opener. And so you can get her a lot lower right off the opener. But then from there, you're going into the full Scorch and Fire Blast range. Now, what you see here is that some of the time I'm going to be able to get out of range of her with Scorch and Fire Blast. And so I touched on this briefly with the Frost Spec, and you can also pop your Barov Trinket and get Dust Field going and things like that to get some free cast burning her down. But here with Fire Spec, you have extended fire range. So your fire spells can be cast up to an additional 6 yards. And so what that means is that you're going to be able to get a lot more range on her, where you can still cast abilities while being out of range of her boulder. So she'll try to cast boulder, but if you're far enough away, you keep on running and then you stop right at the end of the boulder. And if you stop at a far enough range where you're still in range of your spells, she's still trying to cast boulder the entire time, but then you're actually able to get off a Scorch and a Fire Blast right after that. Name of the game, though, you're trying to hug the perimeter, you're running in straight lines, you're trying to make sure that you do not take too much of a curve so that she's not catching up to you, and you just stay out of range of her, burn her down, get her down to that magic 25% where she gets slower, and then just finish off the last little percent. Make sure that if you can, you keep up Scorch vulnerability at all times, because that's going to cause 15% more damage from your Fire Blast, and if you can get off a Fireball and things like that. So you definitely want to be making sure that you're keeping up the Scorch vulnerability at all times. But it's really easy to kill her as a spec, and it could be the number 1 spec if you have decent gear. The one issue with the spec is going to be, as you saw there, that our mana kind of gets lower quicker. The reason being is that we're starting off with a Palm Pyro right off the bat, so we're burning through a ton of mana in the opener. Once the opener is dead, though, we're going back into our normal rotation, so it's the same exact fire, amount of mana being used as Fire Spec, but you also have Master of the Elements with Fire Spec, which also regens a little bit more mana. So if mana is going to be an issue for you if you don't have the best of gear, that is why this spec is not going to be the number 1. But if you're in amazing gear, tons of spell power, I only have like 238. If you have tons of spell power, go for the spec, Obliterator in the opener, and you're going to be good to go. Coming in at number 1, we're going to have the Deep Fire Spec, and so that is going to be the full combustion build. You're going to have maximum crit with your fire spells. You're going to have a ton of damage with your additional fire damage. You're also going to master the elements, so you're getting back extra mana during the kill with your fire spells as long as they crit. And so this is going to be probably the number 1 spec for the majority of the people out there, at least if you're in, decent gear but not great gear, or if you're in, no gear at all and you're a fresh 60, this is definitely the spec that you're going to want to go with. I decided to show you 2 different pools, one with the Barov, one without the Barov, because sometimes you're not going to have a trinket that can cause, dust field and things like that. And so I wanted to show the perspective without it to show the difference. There's not a big difference, but I wanted to show it anyways. My fastest kill with this build is roughly 1 minute and 14 seconds, around there, maybe slightly faster. And so you could definitely go pretty quick with this build. You won't be able to go as quick with Arcane Power if you have a ton of spell power, but it's still pretty quick overall. So let's jump into it. Now, what you want to make sure that you're doing is you want to make sure you're getting her into a decent spot when you're going to open up for the kill. What I like to do is I like to make sure she's right around this middle spot here. And the reason why I want to make her right around that middle spot is because I can get off a full Pyroblast. And as you're going to see, I can get off a Fireball with her at max range still, so that I'm still able to get off a couple Scorches after that and just get a very good opener. One big difference though is I'm not popping combustion in the opener. Reason being, I want to save combustion for when I have dust field, because I'm going to have more time to cast with that dust field than I do in the opener, and I'm going to be able to do a ton of damage. And so here you can see, I quickly type back to this person, but then I open up with a Pyroblast right when she's in the middle, and then right as the Pyroblast goes off, my Fireball actually gets right out of range, and so I get off the Fireball right at the last second, go into Scorch, 2 Scorches, Fire Blast, and then I run. I don't mind if she hits me a couple times because I'm a troll, and so if she hits me, I actually get faster spell cast with my Berserking, so it's not the end of the world. But I'm going to be doing Scorch and Fire Blast as much as possible. Here I pop Dust Field, I pop Combustion, and I'm ready to go all out. Why do I wait on Combustion? Now there's a certain trick that you can do, and as you're going to see, Fireball takes time to travel, right? And Fire Blast gets there instantly, and Scorch gets there instantly. What you can do is if you time your Fireball, and while it's going midair, then you cast Scorch, and then you cast Fire Blast right at the end when it hits her, and all 3 of those will have whatever your combustion chance is. So what combustion does is it gives you a bonus chance to crit, all right? And so if you're up to, say, 5 combustion, you have an additional 50% chance to crit. Odds are your abilities are going to crit. They're about 60% crit chance. And so by casting Fireball, then Scorch, then Fire Blast, all those abilities hit her simultaneously, and they all get the benefit of combustion. Now, if all 3 of those crit, you can have ignite ticks of over 1,000 damage. So it's actually incredible the amount of damage that you can get off with your ignite if you have all those crit. Now, you are going to notice that you take a little bit more damage. I don't use any kind of shields or anything like that because I just want to make sure that I'm keeping up my mana, but you can use this boulder to line of sight. But again, you just hug the outside of the wall. You try to max range her when she's going for the boulder. You want to stop moving at the very end of the boulder, because if you stop moving at the very end of the boulder, what's going to end up happening is that she is going to lose her leeway. And so her boulder actually has a little bit of a leeway while you're moving. But if you stop moving at the very end, it cancels that leeway. So she can't hit you from as far with the boulder. And then you're out of range with the Scorch. And so here you'll see I'm waiting for her to cast cast boulder. I get out of range. She can't cast the boulder. She stops casting boulder, and I can hit her with a Scorch while she's running towards me. A lot harder to do when she's lower health, obviously, but you can see there again that I just outranged the boulder and I'm still in range to do my abilities. And so I wanted to make sure that I highlighted that in this kill. Overall, though, you could do these kills really, really quickly with this spec, especially if the Barov trinket to capitalize on combustion and things like that. But now we're going to jump into, if you do not have that trinket with this spec, how you can still get off those kills. Okay, so now is the last kill. We have the same kind of deep fire spec, but we're going to do it without the Barov trinket, because a lot of the times you aren't going to have the Barov trinket, or maybe it's on cooldown or things like that because it's a 10-minute cooldown. And so we're going to show how to do it without. Now, I was a little bit late to the game and starting off my rotation here, but it's going to be the same kind of opener with one major difference. You pop combustion. Here you don't have a reliable way to trigger dust field, so you want to make sure that you get combustion damage going immediately right off the bat, improve that chance to crit with that Pyroblast, and just hope that you can get her down. So we open up here, we run up to her, we have combustion going, Pyroblast immediately into a Fireball, and then immediately into Scorches. So here she gets out of range of Fireball, but she steps back, so she's still in range, immediately go into Scorch, and then a Fire Blast at the end. I still didn't crit. I actually don't think I crit at all in the opener, which is wild, because I'm already up to a 60% chance. I get lucky with the dust field, but typically you're not going to get that. But I immediately go into Fireball and Scorch. And so watch here, you can see that I get off the Scorch and the Fireball at the same time. And so they both crit, and they both take the advantage of the combustion benefit of chance of critting. So they both have a really good chance of critting just because I got them both off at the same time. Same kind of idea here, though. You're cutting around the outside with Scorch and Fire Blast, trying to keep your max range, stopping at the very end of boulder, hoping that it doesn't hit you. If it hits you, though, not the biggest deal at the end of the day. Just make sure you have some pots with you. Make sure you have bandages so you can bandage if necessary, and ways to keep yourself up as you need it. Run in a straight line, outrange the boulders, blink the boulders. That was a bad blink right there, for example, because I blinked at the end of the boulder cast, so it still went off. But if you blink halfway into the boulder cast or earlier, you're not going to get the boulder to hit you, so you're going to be good to go. Keep on running, eventually get her down to about 25%. You can pop your Fire Ruby trinket whenever, so I use the Mage trinket that you get from the Mage class, the ST quest. And so it just gives me back a little bit of extra mana, but you don't really need that at all either. And then you just focus on getting her down while keeping her at max range. Here I outrange the boulder, and I can still get off Scorch just to do some extra damage, and we take her down. So it's by no means impossible without having, the fire ruby and anything like that. It just makes it a little bit more difficult because you can't trigger a dust field when you want it to proc. Now I did get lucky and triggered a dust field, and so what I like to do is I like to take the first couple hits. Thrash takes time to generate. So that's one big thing, is that she will not start building up the thrash damage until you're already in the fight. And so right off the bat, she doesn't have as much damage if she hits you. So if she hits you during your opener, you're not going to take as much damage, and you can take a couple hits in the opener to hopefully trigger a dust field. Dust field won't proc immediately, but by the time you get around the boulder, you have a decent chance of dust field going off, just as it did there, and then you can get some extra damage from that. So you could try to trigger the dust field if you want to be a little bit more risky, but if not, just go ahead and blink away and just extend the fight. And at the end of the day, you're going to be able to kill her with Scorch and Fire Blast without any issue, because you're getting a lot of mana back from Master of the Elements. Always run Mage Armor to make sure that you're regenerating as much as possible, and so between Mage Armor and the talents, you're regenerating 45% of your mana. So if you have any Spirit on your gear, you're going to be getting back a decent amount of mana throughout the entire fight, so it's really not that difficult. There you can see a Thrash. It actually hit Absorb. I'm going to go for the Dust Field here. I'm almost though, so I'm going to have to be really conservative. This is the downside of the Frost build, is that it is much more mana intensive, and so the very first run I was, I guess, pretty fortunate with the mana, but here we are much lower, and she's actually in range to be able to hit me. This is not good. I need to trigger Dust Field. Thank you, RNG. So I'm getting out of range of her boulder, and I'm going to go for an Evocate and just try to use this Dust Field to get off as much mana as I possibly can get back. So now I got off a decent amount of mana. I have more mana than she has health, which is always a good thing. And what I'm going to try to do is try to be very conservative. I'm going to blink ahead of this boulder. I'm going to go back into Frostbolt, and I'm going to go into... I'm going to hit by that boulder right there. I'm just going to go back into Fire Blast. She's pretty close to me, but I can just run in a straight line at this point. Now she is going to be gaining a little bit of ground, but she shouldn't be able to hit me till the very end. Oh, blink ahead with 41 health. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually let her hit me. I'm going to pop Limited Invulnerability Potion, trigger a Dust Field. You can also use Limited Invulnerability Potions to trigger a Dust Field. I'm going to get away. I'm going to go for the Frostbolt. I know that I can barrier through her boulder, so I'm not too worried about the boulder, but I need to get her down. So I just got her down to 19%. I'm about to get up my Mana Sentry, so I'm feeling pretty good about that. I'm going to blink away, go into Bandage. So now I'm just going to bandage up a little bit of health and use this time that she runs really slow just to get up a little bit of health. Go into the Fire Blast, and then from there we're going to go into the Frostbolt. So I'm out of range of the boulder now, and so now she can't get off any of the boulders on me, so I can go into free casting. I'm going to do Scorch because it's going to be faster than Frostbolt, and I should still be able to get decent range on her. I'm not really worried about my health anymore, so I'm going to stop using Ice Barrier to save mana and swap over to just solely Frostbolt. Go ahead and get the Frostbolt, get the hits. She's down to 6%, so we know that we're good to go. And so we're just going to step away, wait for the Fire Blast cooldown to be off, go for the kill right here, boom, dead. That was close, boys. That was very close. All right, dagger? No dagger. So that at least shows you that perspective. But let's show you how to exactly reset. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to log into my alt. And so this is the first method. And so this, I'm just logging into my second account. And then what we can do is we can invite that second account with my main, pass leadership, log out, and then just reset from there. And so here we're going to go ahead and invite Ogumbank, swap over, take the invite, swap back over, toss lead, and log out. You can also toss lead while you're logging out. You can invite while you're logging out if you want to get super efficient like that. But basically you want to make sure that you toss leadership to the other toon. You log out and then you're good to go. Now, if we didn't have two accounts, what we're going to do is that we're just going to be using one account. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to log out here. We're going to log into our Alt Warrior right there. We're going to use this third character. So this could just be a friend in from your guild, a friend just online, a random person in trade chat. Just get somebody to invite both your main and then your alt. So we're going to invite the alt, take the invite. And so now the main and the alt are in the same group. Pass leadership over to the bank, log out. And then what you can do is basically just keep this group active. And so what you do is you just log out of your mage, log onto your alt, wait 2 minutes, lead will transfer over. Then you just reset the instances. I have a macro that I use personally, so I can give you guys that macro to reset the instance. Maraudon has been reset. Hop back over on your mage, and then everything has been reset, and you are back at the start of the instance and ready to go for another run. So given that the actual run itself is only going to be about, 5 minutes and everything like that, a lot of people are curious about how to make extra money along the way. Now I'm going to show you a couple ways that I make money, but the biggest way to make money is probably going to be the earth elemental farming, and I personally don't do that. Now the reason I don't do the earth elemental farming is it's not as lucrative as fire. You can do it, and Tamira released a video where you can do it as fire, but it's not as great. And I also use that extra time to go level alts, to go do other farms that I need to do with my second account, etc. But if you want to have some extra time while you're just sitting in the instance, if you're frost spec, you can go ahead and you can do the entire just one pool of the normal run. And so that's my normal Mara 1 pool that you can do, and it actually yields, really good gold. And if you're doing the 220 mob pool, you're probably getting about 30 gold a run ish. And so that 30 gold is pretty good. Second way would be to sell runs. And so as I showed at the very beginning of this video, if you put an alt right there in that corner and you kill Princess on the right side, if you're facing her coming from the entrance, if you kill her on the right side of the half of that room, you can actually loot items to somebody standing right there and get loot. You can kind of see at the end here, this is actually Princess's lair right there. And so as long as they're in range right here or right here, but this is a lot safer to be over in this corridor, you can still actually be in range to get loot. And so you just have to kill her on the right half of the Princess's room. The third way is going to be from herbalism or mining. And so as you can see here, there's typically a mithril ore right here, or there's mithril ore scattered around this kind of area. And so if you have mining, you can get a little bit of extra gold with that. There's also herbs. And so there's the herbs in the first 3 spots. There's herbs down in the bottom if you're doing the earth elemental farm. And then there's herbs right here as well. There's typically a blind weed right there or right up there. And so you can get that as well. There's also a ghost mushroom. Sometimes if you go straight through this pathway, there'll be a ghost mushroom right around the loop right up there that you can also grab as well. So Herblork actually gives you an extra probably about 3 to 5 gold on average a run. And then you're actually looting from Princess about 25 gold an hour's worth of loot. So about 5 gold a run on average. If you add in the earth elemental farm, you can make a lot more money. So I'm personally not going to go into the earth elemental farm too much because it does require the frost build, but it is a great farm to be doing. It's really good. Nogar does it in his videos. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show a video and link it up above for Nogar's video on how to farm the elemental earth if you want to go ahead and do that to increase the gold yields from your farm. Reason being, elemental earth right now is getting really expensive with AQ coming out relatively soon. We don't know an exact date, but in the next couple months to maybe 3 months or so. And elemental earth is going to be imperative for the potions. So that's a great farm to do as well. Those are the biggest ways you can make money, as well as doing Princess and make it a little bit extra more lucrative while you're spending your hour. All right, everyone, that wraps up today's video. I hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, please subscribe and leave a like and a comment below to let me know so. And if you guys have any other ideas for any other videos, please let me know in the comments below. Also, check out the description for the Twitch where I do all this live, and also for my Twitter and Discord where you guys can be notified of any future updates and when I'm going to go live on stream. So I'll see you guys in the next video.